Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Turning Point podcast. This is episode number 25. Happy New Year! It's 2022. I'm one of your hosts, Lara, and I am joined here, you just heard him, by Lewin. How are we doing, my friend? I'm
going good. Happy New Year, everyone.
Yes, it's 2022, and we're still doing this shit.
I know, we somehow managed to do... We took a hiatus, but we somehow consistently have an episode in 3 years.
Yeah, consistently, except for last year when we were like, we'll do an episode, and then we just didn't record one for like months. But we got a few out, and that's what matters, you know?
And we have a somewhat stable, mainly because the show was actually running, Doctor Who podcast. So...
Exactly, and you know, that podcast performed exactly how I expected it to. The first episode got more views, and the last episode got more views, and then the episodes in between were pretty just steady. I think the episode title, "This Episode Broke Us," really worked in the show's favor.
Hell yeah.
That worked to the show's favor. I was really struggling to think of names because I was like, I don't want to just call it the episode title because I've put the episode title in the thumbnail. And I was just like, I just don't get. If you go and check out the episodes for episode 5 and 6, and you look at the description, there is no description because I just didn't bother. I was like, I do not care about this. I'm just going to upload it, make a little thumbnail like I've been doing, and I still haven't put a description there. The intention was to go back and add a description later because I was just like, I just want to get it out of the way. I don't care. And I just still haven't done it. So if you go to our episode 5 and episode 6 review of Flux, there's no description there. So I thought that was pretty funny. I might leave it like that, actually. I think I should just leave it like that. Yeah.
It can be substanceless, just like some of the episodes.
Oh, God. Doctor Who Flux, eh?
To find out more, go check out those.
That came and went, and don't want to think about it again. Probably never going to watch it again, to be honest with you.
I most definitely will, because that's
I mean, you're on a rewatch, so there is
I'm on a rewatch, and I've already
some
seen the
point
series twice already.
Why? Why do you do that to yourself?
I've got family. I had to watch it alone so I could record the podcast review. And then I watch it with family, and then I'm going to watch it with my partner eventually. Yeah, and then I'll probably just watch it by myself, so that'll be 4 times.
That's 4 times. That's 4 times too many, if you ask me. I finally have a little bit of extra cash, so I'm actually going to be able to pay the podcast people to host the podcast for the next 12 months.
You can now find us on all relevant platforms when this happens.
And also, which means now we have to pump episodes out, because the reason why I think we slacked off a bit on episodes as well was just because I'm like, they're just going on YouTube. But now I've got 3 episodes of this podcast I need to now upload onto podcast services, as well as create a new podcast and upload 6 episodes of a Doctor Who podcast. So that's all very exciting. It's work for me that I have to do, but at least I can just copy and paste the descriptions. So
hooray!
It's good stuff. So we're finally up on podcast platforms, which means the episodes are probably going to be on podcast platforms before they're going to be on YouTube, because I'm lazy like that, and that's how we roll. Anyway, 2022. How's your year been so far? We're like, half a month into it so far already? Even though I swear it was like Christmas like a week ago, but...
I feel that we're in the in-between period.
Oh my god, something's happened to my mic and it's not sitting properly. But yes, keep going.
I've just got my mic propped up on a bunch of Time Lord Victorious action figure boxes.
I mean, yeah.
I don't have a mic arm. I just have a snowball.
Cheeky snowball mic.
My 2022 has been, I would argue, better than my 2021 so far.
That's good.
There's still a constant fear of, the yearly COVID variant. We had Delta last year. We had the original in 2020. Got Omicron now, and Omicron is set to just take my entire state by storm.
Nice. That's what you want.
Yeah, it's going great for you too. I've seen your numbers.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's great. Do you know what's weird? Like, it's actually crazy. I was driving to work the other morning, and it's like, busy morning, like weekday busy morning traffic, right? Well, normally it would be. I was running late. I was running very late. I had 20 minutes to do a 35-minute trip. And as you know, I spent most of last year not driving because I didn't have a license for that exact reason. So I was like, oh, fuck. But I was like, oh, well, I'll just be late, whatever. And then I ended up arriving at work like 2 minutes early. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? I didn't even speed to get there. There was just no traffic on what's meant to be a busy weekday morning. And part of it would have been, obviously, school's not back yet. But like, even when school's not in session, it's still pretty busy.
Yeah.
So it's been wild the last few weeks just to see, like, it's not busy at all.
My business has had, like, our major... I work at an arcade. We have school groups come through all the time. Our major disgusting school holiday business. They've pulled out for the rest of the holidays. So financially for the job, that's great.
Been practicing the drums. I'm back working out again because I did, like... Over Christmas and New Year's, I didn't work out, like, at all. And I really slacked off in December leading up to Christmas as well. So I was like, I'm back into that again, which is really good. So yeah, it's all back in the swing of things.
Nice.
It's good. It's all right. It's not great. It's just all right, Could be better.
Could be better, but at least it's not worse.
Do you know what is worse?
I don't, but what is?
This is a segue into the catch-up segment.
You're okay.
Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City.
Do tell, how bad?
Oh my god. Originally I was going to do an episode. I was going to see if, like, Tom wanted to come back on, because he hasn't been on the podcast for ages. And I was
would be fitting.
And I was like, maybe we could do a Resident Evil episode and get Tom on, and then, you could see it and we can all just, like, sit and talk about that film. And then I watched the movie. I don't want to do an episode on that. It's fucking terrible.
That bad, huh?
I think Tom likes it, but I'm like, when I watched it, and Tom, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry, I'm not just assuming, it's just going based on your tweets. But, when I was watching it, I was like, yeah, I could see Tom liking this. But also at the same time, I was like, this is fucking garbage. Like, this is even more garbage than the other ones. I'm sorry. I know it's more video game accurate, but it's terrible. And when we say video game accurate, it's only video game accurate by aesthetics. Which the other films weren't. Unless you count Jill Valentine's costume in Resident Evil Apocalypse.
I think Leon's costume was pretty accurate.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, so in the new movie, the costumes are accurate. I mean, some of them look like cheap cosplay, but, that's neither here nor there. The sets, straight out of the games. Like, there's this amazing wide shot of the RPD, and it literally looks exactly how it looks in Resident Evil 2 Remake. So, like, it's a lot more faithful in a lot of aspects, and there are a lot of plot aspects that have been carried over. However...
Yes.
And this is what hurts me the most. Characterization. That's kind of an important thing.
When you're adapting a property, it's kind of one of the main things you want to go for.
The thing we're talking about this episode, which I didn't even say what this episode's about, but you know what it's about from the title. Let's talk about The Witcher, right? Geralt's characterization. All of those characterizations, actually, for the most part, are pretty accurate. And mind you, when I say that, I'm saying that based off the games, because I've only literally just started reading the books.
I'm in the same boat as you.
This is not the same. Holy shit. Like, wow, none of these characters, and I mean none of them, are even remotely like their video game counterparts in any way. None of them share any of the same character traits. Let me just put it this way. Albert Wesker, is more of a high school jock than he is Albert Wesker. You
And
know,
you tell me something. How much did it end up playing into it? Him being with Jill.
yes, kind of,
Fuck.
yeah. Kind of, yeah.
Fuck.
So there's definitely... Okay, so it didn't explicitly go into it, but there's definitely a lot of subtext there when you're watching the movie, and I was just like, this is fucking terrible for starters. Oh, and... look, I'll get to Jill in a sec, but Claire was alright. I will say I thought Claire was okay. She didn't exactly have the character traits that Claire has, but she was more like Jill Valentine than Jill Valentine was, but she was at least a character that at least resembled in part Claire Redfield and Jill Valentine if they were both merged together into one character. And I actually thought she was right. I think she was the best actor in the movie.
Okay.
She gave the best performance. Chris Redfield, mate, it is... Look, nah. Sorry. I'm
I've heard
sorry.
good things about Chris.
Nah.
No?
Look, listen, he's... Yeah, look, I don't think he's believable as Chris Redfield. I think in terms of characterization, sure. I mean, it's not any different to Paul W.S. Anderson's characterization of Chris Redfield, so why not, right? Who else is in this movie? Oh, Leon. Oh my god, Leon. Wow. I can't believe that anyone signed off on this. Anyone. Leon is the biggest fucking idiot I have ever seen in a film. Like, he's just the dumbest character, and he's played up like a comedic relief character. He's just a fucking stupid person, and somehow he's made his way onto the RPD force. He has absolutely zero relation to Leon in the game. There is nothing about his character that even resembles Leon S. Kennedy, apart from the outfit that he's wearing. He's just an idiot. He's a massive idiot. And people are like going, oh, well, you know, he's like a rookie. No, that doesn't fly. Like, I'm sorry, but they've just made him the biggest bumbling idiot. He's a loser. He's the biggest loser I have ever seen in a film.
That's pretty opposite to the Leon I know. Yes, I hope it is, given Leon is my favorite character.
Yeah, honestly, I guarantee you, if you watch this movie, and I would recommend only ever watching this movie if you're pissed.
That's great. I don't
agree. Absolutely fucking hammered. Watch this movie. There is absolutely zero reason to ever watch this garbage. But I haven't talked about Jill Valentine yet.
Yes.
And let me just...
This is your precious subject, isn't it?
Let me just say this. Hannah John Carmen is the perfect choice for Jill Valentine. The character she plays is not Jill Valentine, and the moment she opened her mouth and started talking in the very first scene she's in, I was like, shut the fuck up. I was like, just shut the fuck up. That is not what Jill would say. And then there's like a scene immediately after that where she's introducing herself to Leon after Wesker's just been bullying Leon for some reason. They don't even know each other. Like, Wesker's just being a dick. And then she's like, oh, don't worry about those guys. And then she's like, I'm Jill Valentine. And I was like, shut. And then he's like, oh, I'm Leon S. Kennedy. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Both of you are neither of those characters. Shut up. Yeah, it's fucking shit. And the plot is a bit silly. It's not silly in the way that some of the Paul W.S. Anderson films were. It's just silly in the way that it's exactly how you would expect trying to merge two game plots into one would go. It's exactly how you would expect that to go. Yeah, it's a shit movie. It looks good. Looks good, has a great atmosphere. That's about all I can say about it. I'm sorry, but I'm going to say this. If we're going to compare this reboot to the first Resident Evil movie from Paul W.S. Anderson, I'm going to say the first one was better. Because at least that was, in my view, I actually think that's a pretty decent movie. Like, it's a B-grade movie, right? Like, it's not A tier or S tier
Yeah.
or anything, but it's pretty decent for what it is. Not video game accurate in the slightest, but it's decent for what it is. This film, it's on par with the final chapter for me.
Oh, Jesus.
On par. Like, I'm sorry, but I can say very confidently that at least 5 of the Paul W.S. Anderson movies are better than this.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my rant about Resident Evil. It's a shit movie. Don't watch it.
Cool.
But that's something I watched. What have you watched recently? What have you been up to?
I haven't really. Well, as always, I'm watching Doctor Who on the rewatch. I watched Encanto, the movie that everyone loves.
What movie is that?
It's the latest Disney film. It's like not Pixar. It's just Disney. It's their latest animated film. It's about a Spanish family and a girl who doesn't have...
I've seen the trailer for that. It's the one that doesn't have, like, magic powers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen the trailer for that. That looks alright.
It's a good film. I just feel like I don't like it as much as nearly the entire world at this point. Because everyone's raving about it. I'm just like, it's an alright film. I wouldn't rush to see it again.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes sense. But God...
Every time I see people mention why they like it, it tends to tie into like how they grew up. Like, they had issues with family and things. I'm like, I don't have that connection, so maybe that's why this isn't hitting for me.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't hit for me too, so...
Like, I'd say if you do like Disney animated films and you have a slow night, watch it once. It's a fun movie. Music is good.
It would have to be a very fucking slow night, I'm going to be honest with you.
Fair enough. No, I enjoyed it, but yeah, just like, I would say it's a 7 out of 10, while everyone else seems to be going, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10.
Right. Yeah, fair enough. What else have you been up to?
Been playing...
Any games you've been playing?
I recently replayed and platinumed Dishonored 2, which was fun, because I have not played Dishonored 2 since launch. So it's been 6 years, and I very much enjoyed it.
That's good. I've never played any of the Dishonored games.
They're really short.
Oh yeah, that's good. I love short games. The shorter the better.
I tend to know exactly how to get to you. They're really short.
I'm just going to add that to the list then. Might as well. It's on Xbox Game Pass.
They are actually decent. Like, when Dishonored 1 came out, I was really excited for it. I got introduced to it through our good mate, Will.
Oh, good old William.
Yep, I got introduced to it through him. And then the game came out, and I was like, yeah, this is garbage. I don't like this at all. Came back to it like 3 years later when it got ported back to the PS4. Gave it a shot. Really enjoyed it the second time through. And then...
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta play, like, leave a bit of space in between games.
It
Like,
took me,
maybe
like,
I might
4
enjoy,
times.
you know... Oh my god, what's going on with my mic, man? Fuck. Maybe I might enjoy, like, Nier Automata if I revisited it in, like, 10 years.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm just like, nah. No way I'm ever gonna play that.
It took me 4 restarts to like Mass Effect 2. It took me a very long time to like
Mass Effect 2 like the
2.
best one though?
It's objectively
I remember Mass Effect 3 more than I remember Mass Effect 2, if I'm honest with you. But I still enjoyed Mass Effect 2, and I've never played the first game. But the remastered trilogy, I think, is going to be coming for free on something or other. I think it's
like
EA
Game
Play.
Pass.
So
Xbox
EA
Play.
Game Pass,
Cool.
yeah. So, and that's, you know, you get that with Game Pass. So I can, you know, I'm glad I didn't buy it because I love me free games.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Mass Effect 1 is a really good game, but no, Mass Effect 2
I'm looking forward to
took
replaying
me
it.
ages to get into. And then, you know, you just sit down one time and play, and you're like, this finally clicks with me. And you go through to the end, and then...
Definitely.
I love Mass Effect now. It's a great trilogy. It's
amazing how much games that I've tried over the last year that I've really gotten into. Like, games that I wouldn't normally play. Final Fantasy VII being one of them, obviously. You know, like, I was actually very nervous about starting that one because I just, like, recently tried Nier Automata and I didn't get into it. And I know Final Fantasy VII and that very different, but it's from the same kind of genre, I guess. And so I was very nervous about trying it because I was like, fuck, I don't, what if I get this and it's, it's not good. Luckily, it was free on PlayStation Plus.
Yeah.
And now it's like my favorite game of all time.
Yeah.
Persona 5, I haven't finished it, but, I revisited that game after years of starting it years ago and not really getting into it. And then now I revisited that game, last year on stream. Still playing it, plan on playing it in the future, but I fucking love that game now. Like, that's such a great game. So, I don't know if it's like, it's probably just my tastes changing. Because, like, and who knows, maybe one day I might play Red Dead Redemption 2. Who knows? Years ago when that came out, I had no time for that whatsoever, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, nope, that is not going to be a game I'm going to play, just purely because I'm like, I'm not playing it. I don't have the time for it. But, who knows? Maybe one day I might just sit down and give it a good cheeky go. And I'm not saying I hate Red Dead Redemption 2 or anything. I'm just saying I didn't have time for it.
Yeah, no, it's a very long game and a slow game.
It's like Spider-Man. Like, I played probably about, 4 hours of Spider-Man on PS4, and then I just stopped playing it because I was like, I don't have time for this. I'm not doing it. I'm not fucking doing it. So I would like to go back to that, but I've been playing a little bit of The Witcher 3 again. Just doing little bits and pieces, trying out some new mods and some new graphics mods and things. Speaking of mods, I've been playing, as I said earlier, I streamed it, but I've been playing a lot of Battlefront 2 recently. And that's because the entire modding scene of Battlefront 2 has changed recently. And we now have custom servers, which is fantastic because it means you can play online with your buddies, with mods if you wish, and
awesome
not
feeling.
Get banned. And also not have to deal with hackers. So it's bloody great. And the software it's called, if you're listening to this and you're interested and you have it on PC, sorry. God, I'd be amazed if Battlefront 2 ran on the PSP. The original one does. I have it.
Yes, so do I.
I'm talking about the new one though, with mods. But yeah, no, it's called Kyber, and it's basically a third-party application that you download onto your computer. And then what you do is you open that up before you open Battlefront, and then before you open it, you go onto the Kyber website, and then you can either host a server or you can just select from any available servers. And you can have the servers as private as well, so then you can just play with your friends or whatever. And basically what you do is you select the server you want to play on, or you create your server, and you select what game mode you want, what map you want, all of that kind of fun stuff. And then if you just want to play the vanilla game, you just open Battlefront 2 the way you would normally do it, and Kyber will automatically connect you to that server and the game. So it doesn't load up the game into the menu or anything, it just goes straight into the game. Or if you want to play with mods, you just download all the mods that are required for that specific server and then launch the game through Frosty Mod Manager, and you can play online with friends with mods.
That's really
And the best
cool.
part about it is the Kyber servers will fill, you can, as an admin, you can set the bots for the server. So, let's say you're only playing with your mate one night, right?
Yeah.
You and your mate could just play together and then just fill the entire server with bots.
That would honestly be lovely in just the main game. Given after you sent the mod list to me, I was like, oh damn, I really want to play Battlefront 2 now. But at the point I wanted to play, the servers were pretty much dead for the night. I was like, I would love to get a proper game going. Even if it is just bots.
The thing about the servers is you don't need to even play on Kyber servers. So Kyber's just if you want to play online, or you want to play with your friends and you want to play with mods or whatever. If you want to play by yourself, there's a great mod called Instant Action Overhaul. And it essentially completely overhauls the instant action mode, and that mod is compatible with all the extra hero mods and everything, because all of the extra hero mods and mods that are being released are compatible with both the private matches and instant action overhaul. So if you just want to play by yourself, you can just install that mod and then just add on all the heroes you want to and just play the game.
That's cool.
So, and if you want, if you still wanted to play with online servers, you could just host a server yourself and just lock it and then just fill it with bots, and you could still just play by yourself with the same mods. So,
cool.
The only downside to Frosty is Frosty mod, it takes ages to load. So once it's loaded once, unless you change the mod list, it has to redo everything. What I usually do is I just put it on and let it do it. And mine, it honestly I don't know how it is for maybe it's quicker on other computers, but for me it takes about 4 to 5 minutes, sometimes longer, depending on the mods I have.
Yeah.
And you just let it do its thing, and then it will boot up the game. But the thing about that is, unless you change the load order, next time you click start, it'll just boot up the game with the mods because it's already installed them. So that's the only downside to it. But I mean, it's a small price to pay to play with such really high quality mods that we're getting at the moment.
The character models I saw looked phenomenal.
They do. There's so many mods, and likewise there's so many different versions of Frosty as well, so it's a little confusing sometimes which mods work with which version, and sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error to try and figure out what mods work with what. Unless it directs it, the mods will usually say this works with Frosty version 5 or whatever. Full
New Vegas working with every other mod you need.
Yeah, but it's confusing, but it's a lot of fun. I've been having a lot of fun just doing that, and I did do a stream recently on my channel, so if you want to check that out, the VOD is over on my second channel. You can go and check that out. I've got a few good mods on there. It's essentially the mods I showed you last night, but they just released a new Ahsoka Tano mod, which is really cool. And yeah, I've just been having a lot of fun with that, and I think the potential now for modding is gonna go crazy. I already know the modders behind Kyber are actually currently working on a new custom game mode, which is gonna be called Wampa Hunt. So that's going to be coming, which means this opens the door for, people to create their own game modes and everything, which is going to be very exciting. I mean, let me just say this. Playing 60v60 heroes versus villains on, a massive conquest map, and it's just heroes as villains, and there's modded heroes in there and modded villains. It is a clusterfuck, but it is fantastic. So much. It's amazing. I didn't play a lot of it because unfortunately that particular server, the ping wasn't very good for me, but I did it was playable, but it wasn't the best. So I only played a bit of it, but the bit of it that I did play, incredible. And the server was I think there was about 20-30 people in the lobby, but the server was half bots, but it was insanity. It was ridiculous. Wow. But it's very exciting. It's very exciting for the future of the game. So it's good to see the modders taking the game into their own hands and kind of... EA's abandoned the game, so they're like, well, you know what? We're gonna fucking take it over. And this happened with the original Battlefront 2. In fact, you can still download mods for the original Battlefront 2. There's still people making mods for that game.
Yes. It is still a very popular game.
It is a very popular game, and I can definitely see the EA Battlefront 2 is going to go down the same route. It's just gonna get better from here. So that's what's very exciting.
Yeah.
But I've been playing that recently. What else have I been doing? I've been replaying Final Fantasy VII on PC this time. And it's actually exciting because it's the PS5 version of the game. Yeah. Because it's Intergrade. So I've got this, slightly better graphics and lighting. It's not a hell of a lot. There's not a hell of a big difference, especially in cutscenes between the PS4 and PS5. But in the general world, I've definitely noticed a bit more of a difference in the actual rendered gameplay segments. The lighting's just that little bit more improved. The textures are a little bit better. They fixed the door texture in chapter 3 or 4 or whichever chapter it is. The door to Cloud's little room.
Yes, when you get to Cloud's apartment, I know.
And it's just a terrible, terrible texture. Fix that texture, that's nice now. But it's been a lot of fun revisiting that game, and I've really tried to focus really hard on, really equipping my characters with, the gear and getting the loadout right, and, getting my materia sorted. And, let me just say, on the PS4 version, I got up to chapter 16. I was about halfway through 16, so it's the chapter where you're raiding the Shinra facility.
Yeah.
at the end where you've got to go rescue Aerith. And I got about halfway through that chapter before I stopped playing it for a while because I went on to play other things and do some bits. And I'm now up to the start of that chapter again. So I've still got to play another half of the chapter to get up to where I was. But I am in a much better position, just gear-wise, than what I was on the PS4 version. And let me just say, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to go back to the PS4 version now. Like, just for fun, I turned the game down to 30 FPS, and oh my god, I can't play that. I can't do it. It's amazing how when you play PS4 games, you're just so used to 30 FPS, you don't notice it, right? Like, I guarantee you, if I went to play Final Fantasy on the PS4, I probably wouldn't notice the 30 FPS at all. But when you jump from 90 FPS down to 30 FPS, it is very, very noticeable, so and I honestly don't think I could do that.
Would you recommend that I just get the free upgrade for the game, put it to the PS5? Because as far as I'm aware, that has 60 FPS. Would you recommend that?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I'm playing in 60 FPS now, only just simply because the problem, because as has been very widely reported, the PC version is a bit scuffed. Not in terms of the game, but just in terms of like the performance, it's not the best. But that has been fixed quite a bit by modders. And they released a patch recently for it that did fucking nothing, as usual. But apparently I'm not expecting it to be fixed, because the biggest problem it had was it was very stuttery. Especially in the segments where it's like that kind of like open world space, like the little mini open worlds. It was very stuttery in chapter 4. I found for me the linear segments were fine. I had nice smooth frame rates, no problems, but the moment I got to those open world segments, it would start to stutter quite a bit.
Yeah, okay.
But I fixed that. That's for the PC version, though, not the PS5 version. Everyone's saying the PS5 version is the best version of this game.
Cool, okay.
But yeah, that's been fun. Other than that, I haven't really been doing much else, to be honest with you. Just been working. So, hang on. I completely forgot. We'll talk about it briefly. Spider-Man. We both saw that.
Yes, we did. Yes. I also forgot.
What did you think about it?
I think it is my favorite Spider-Man film, on the same grounds that Endgame is my favorite film. It's purely fan service. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily the best Spider-Man film. I just love it for the fan service.
It is a great movie. I had a lot of fun with this movie, and look, I'm on the record as saying I'm not a fan of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I love Tom Holland. What a gem. But I don't like his Peter Parker or his Spider-Man. I think the biggest issue I have with him is I think he was really good in Civil War, and then after that, I thought he wasn't very good at all. It's not a performance thing. It's just a writing thing. Like, I don't think they've nailed the character of Spider-Man or Peter Parker at all. Like, people keep saying he's the best, like, on-screen Peter Parker and Spider-Man, but you know what? I actually prefer Skater Boy Andrew Garfield over Tom Holland's Peter Parker any day. Like, I'm sorry, but I do. So I don't know, like there's a lot of things that I like about Tom Holland, but I think his movies, I think they went way too hard on him being in the MCU. Like, I know it was a big deal for him to be in the MCU, but they went way too hard on that fact. And for me, his movies aren't really Spider-Man movies. Like, they're more about Spider-Man being in the MCU than they're actually about telling Spider-Man stories.
Yes,
however, by the way, I also haven't seen Far From Home. I've seen a lot of clips of it, and I've seen a lot of videos about it, so I know pretty much everything that happens in it, and I've seen probably the majority of the movie by watching YouTube videos about it and clips and stuff, but I've never sat down to watch that movie start to finish.
Yeah.
And the reason why was because it came out after Endgame, and at that point, I just didn't give a shit anymore. I was like, Endgame has come and gone, I am done. I do not need to watch a movie about Peter Parker being sad about Tony Stark's death or whatever. Because that's all the trailer made it out to be, right? Like, that initial trailer was all like, oh, I'm Peter Parker, I'm so sad. It's like, fuck, I don't care. I don't care. Like, I want a story about Peter Parker. And I understand narratively it makes sense. Like, of course, you know, I guess he was, like, a father figure. So it would make sense for the film to deal with that. But I was just like, I don't care. I'm not interested in it. So I never bothered watching it. And from what I have heard, it's not very good.
I love Far From Home.
Of course you do. But anyway, I'll ask you what your thoughts are in a sec. But, so I didn't have much hope for this movie at all. You know, like, we had Into the Spider-Verse a few years ago, and that definitely came out and proved to be a better Spider-Man movie than pretty much any other Spider-Man movie. So I didn't really have a lot of hope. I mean, we've known for so long that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were going to be in this. Alright, we knew at least Andrew Garfield would, because that was leaked months ago. And my favourite part about this film is Andrew Garfield in interviews being like, I'm not in this movie. For like months leading up to the film. He's just like, I'm not in it. Like, and it's just, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a great compilation video on YouTube of just like all the times he's been asked about Spider-Man.
I have seen the video.
How great is it watching that video now after watching the movie? Like, it's very obvious that he's
I'm
lying.
not the werewolf.
Yeah, like, why would you say that, you know? Like, it's very obvious he's trying to really dodge the question and come up with different answers. But I think he did a good job. But the problem I think that happened with him is it was very obvious he was in the film because there was literally 4K footage, like actual footage from the movie, just without the special effects, that was leaked of him. So, you know, even though he kept saying he wasn't in the movie, everyone knew he was in the movie. But it didn't change. And I want to talk about Tom Holland's Spider-Man in a bit, but it didn't change the impact of him jumping through that portal and taking it off. Even though I knew he was in the movie and I knew he was coming, and by the way, I had all of the scenes spoiled for me beforehand, because I'm going to be real with you, Lewin. I'm going to be real. The only reason I would have watched this movie is if I had 100% confirmation that the other two were in it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have watched it. Yeah. Or, actually, no, sorry. I would have watched it when it came to Disney Plus, because I would have watched it for my boy Willem Dafoe, and that would have been it. But as soon as I saw on YouTube those shitty cam quality clips of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield interacting, and then Andrew Garfield is cracking Tobey's back, and it's a great scene. As soon as I saw all of those clips, I was like, I have to see this in the cinemas. Fucking loved this movie, and not just the whole Spider-Verse stuff, but I actually really, really enjoyed all the Tom Holland stuff in this movie. Like, this movie is first and foremost a Tom Holland Spider-Man story, and this gave me exactly what I wanted from a Spider-Man Tom Holland movie. I wanted a Spider-Man story about Spider-Man, and I think this film gave me not just that, but I think it has the best MCU implementation of all of these movies.
Yes, I agree.
I think Doctor Strange actually has a purpose in the story, and he comes and he goes.
The only thing I found odd, yes, Willem Dafoe was fucking fantastic again.
Best MCU villain. I'm just gonna say it. Best MCU. Thanos who? Willem Dafoe comes in, doesn't even have his Green Goblin mask on, and that was a very smart choice, by the way. I'm glad they got rid of his mask after one scene.
I was grinning like a madman when he had his little schizophrenic back and forth with himself. It's one of my favorite things from Spider-Man 1. Oh, actually, no, he does it the whole trilogy.
He does in the whole trilogy, yeah.
Where he just keeps talking to himself, and I love it. And then he did it, like, straight away, and I was like, I fucking love this already.
And Doc Ock, I think, you know, like, I mean, all the trailers obviously made him out to be this big villain, but he really wasn't a villain at all in this one. Like, he turned up, he was an antagonistic in one scene, and then it was kind of just like, I mean, he kind of got his wings clipped off, if you will, and then he just kind of was like, yeah, let's like cure everyone, and that's the plan of this movie. The plan is to cure all the villains, and then send them back to their universe cured. Which is interesting because it's actually an interesting arc, because if you think about Dr. Octavius's arc in Spider-Man 2, he doesn't really need the cure by the end, because the chip is damaged and he's in control again, and he's able to, think reasonably. But I like that he's cured in this movie only to be sent back to be good anyway, and then he dies a good guy, but that's still great.
It stayed true to all the villains, and I think, yeah.
What did you think about the movie? Sorry, I just ranted a bit, but I wanted to get my whole thing out of the way about this movie before kind of asking you how you thought about it.
I love the film, same as you. I think it was the perfect... there was a little bit that kind of irritated me, but then the movie kind of explains, I can only take, as much as Spider-Man is my favorite superhero, I can only take so much of the Spider-Man idioms before I'm like, we're doing this again. So when
was it the Aunt May with great power comes great responsibility?
I was like, she said it, and I was like, right.
At least she actually said it. Unlike in the Amazing Spider-Man movie, where you've got Uncle Ben being like, it's not an obligation, but responsibility, or whatever it is he says in that movie. They just reworded it to say the same thing, but it's just not as good. At least Aunt May actually said it.
It only irritated me when it happened, because later in the film, it becomes abundantly clear that the MCU trilogy of Spider-Man so far has been like a weird little origin story for this Peter Parker.
Yeah, to be honest, I hate that, but that's okay.
I love it personally.
Well, yeah, but people are like, see, that was the plan all along.
No, that was not the plan.
And I'm like, that was definitely not the plan all along. Like, Peter Parker, the whole point of introducing Peter Parker in Civil War was that he was already Spider-Man and established. But I don't mind it from a narrative perspective in this movie, specifically because of how this movie ends as well, which we'll get to in a sec.
I didn't mind, like, when she said, I was like, okay, we're doing this again, alright. And then later on, it's like, oh yeah, this was Tom Holland's origin story, and I'm like, okay, you know what? If that's the first time unless the animated series that comes out sometime this year, I think it is.
I'm not gonna watch that.
I will, because I love Spider-Man.
I don't love Tom Holland's Spider-Man enough to watch that. But do you know what I will watch? If they do anything with Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire,
yes,
I'll be on board for that. I don't care if it's an animated series. I don't care if it's them turning up in Doctor Strange, a movie I'm going to watch anyway.
Looks fantastic.
I don't care if they make an Amazing Spider-Man 3. I don't give a shit. I want to see, because here's my theory. Here's my logic. If we can have multiple Batmen at the same time, if we can have Ben Affleck, Michael Keaton, and Robert Pattinson all be Batman in the same year, I think we can have Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and Tom Holland all be Spider-Man at the same time. I think that's fine.
I agree. I do agree.
And you know, I want to see an Amazing Spider-Man 3. Like, I want that. As soon as Andrew Garfield was describing how after Gwen's death, he kind of stopped pulling his punches and whatever, that's the film I want to see. I want to see that. Because I know the original plan for Spider-Man, there was a script for that. And obviously, if they do it, they're probably going to go in a different direction to what the original script was. But in the original script, we do know that, Gwen, Emma Stone was still going to be there as Gwen Stacy, but she was going to be Spider-Gwen. So they were going to do a Spider-Verse film long before Spider-Verse or the MCU decided to do multiverse stuff. But I want to see that. That's a good movie right there. But if all we get is a little throwaway line, I'm happy with that as well. Because my God, was I fucking grinning. And honestly, I'm going to be real with you, I teared up quite a few times in that last half hour. I'm not going to lie.
Likewise.
I loved that entire last third act of the film. And what I love about Toby and Andrew being in this film is they weren't just cameo appearances. Like, they were side characters. They had an important role to play, but they didn't overshadow Tom Holland's Spider-Man. You know, it was still his story, and those characters were there in service of Tom Holland's story. They weren't there to come in and go, hey, look at us, we're here, and now the film's about us. It's just like the villains. The villains came in to serve his story. It wasn't about the old characters coming back. It was about servicing our current Spider-Man to move forward. And it actually reminded me a lot of a Doctor Who special. Just any scene where the three of them interacted, all I thought about in my head was David Tennant, Matt Smith, and John Hurt. I was like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. I love how enthusiastic Tobey Maguire gets about the fact that Tom Holland's in the Avengers. Like, he's like, the Avengers, he's like, wow, that's great. What is that? And just the three of them interacting with each other, like those little scenes where they have those moments are my favorite in the whole film.
Perfection.
Yeah, when they're like Peter 1, Peter 2, and then Andrew's like just stops and he's like, I love you guys. And
apparently that was like, improv.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Apparently Andrew Garfield did just say that, which is why the reaction is so awkward.
Yeah, I think Toby just looks confused more than anything else. But what I love about it is they are very clearly the same character, but they are all distinctly... That's why it reminds me of Doctor Who special, you know? They're all the same character, but they're also distinctly different.
It's something that I very much loved about the film, because, yeah, you've got the novelty of it being, like, Into the Spider-Verse and all that, but the thing with Into the Spider-Verse is they're all different people.
They're all different people where this is all the same character. Yeah,
and that's just... It's the main thing that I love about that.
I also loved Andrew and Toby's introduction scenes. Like, the whole bit where, like, the grandmas or whatever is like... Or the mother or whatever she is.
The abuela.
Is like, could you get the web in the corner while you're up there? And he's like, oh, fuck, fine. And he just crawls along the roof to get the web. And yeah, I mean, ours, like, I went to see it a couple of weeks after it came out, so I'd already obviously had the whole last half of the movie spoiled for me, but I was still excited to see it, for real. And I'm not gonna kidding, I definitely 100% was on the verge of crying when all three of them were running across the scaffolding and they jumped off and were flying through the sky and, like, using each other as things to hook their webs onto as they were flying through the sky. And then all three of them landed, and they all landed in their own very unique Spider-Man pose. And I was just like, oh, this is fucking sick.
It was.
Honestly, like, this is way more cooler than Endgame. And I had a similar reaction to the end of Endgame, just seeing everyone there ready to fight Thanos and having, you know, those last moments and a lot of the other scenes as well. But I had a similar reaction to that. But this just meant more to me because, like, Toby and Andrew are my boys. Like, I've always loved the Amazing Spider-Man films. I don't think they're great movies, especially the second one's a mess.
Yes.
But there's a lot of moments in that movie I really love. And I've always loved Andrew Garfield's portrayal of the characters as well. I think his Spider-Man portrayal is spot on. Peter Parker's a very different direction to what you would expect, but I still enjoyed that. I thought it was cool.
The rumour mill of... Or it's not a rumour mill, because there's no way they've got these plans right now. But everyone's like, yeah, Venom and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is...
Yeah, I think that would work.
Yeah.
But it would have to be before his appearance in... No Way Home.
Yeah, naturally.
Because I think his appearance in No Way Home kind of resolves that arc for him.
Yeah.
I like how that movie sets up an arc for him and then resolves it in the same, you know, in the span of like 10 minutes. Normally, I would criticize that as bad writing, but it services his character and his films, which is I thought I was really good. You know, like having him save MJ, I think was a very smart way to kind of wrap up his character arc.
I teared up when... That was one of the moments I teared up when she asked if he was okay, and he was, like, just close to tears.
Yeah. Yeah. That's because but then he's like, I'm not the werewolf. and then just like fucks off. But overall, look, I don't have a lot more I want to say about it. That's why we haven't done like an episode on it, because I really just wanted to talk about the fact that there were multiple Spider-Men in this movie. But the one thing I do want to address, I don't know if there's anything else you want to address at all.
No, it's all due. What have you got?
The only thing I want to bring up is this movie has made me excited about the future of not just the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. Like, I actually find myself caring about those for the first time since Civil War came out. But also, like, I'm interested in just the Spider-Man property, because having Tobey and Andrew come back is a massive thing. And Sony being Sony, like, the people want it. And I doubt they're not going to capitalize on this. I mean, there's already a lot of rumors going around that both Tobey and Andrew are going to appear in Doctor Strange. You know, we got rumors of a potential, Spider-Man 4 or a Spider-Man. I know one of the things that I've heard recently is there's an idea for a Spider-Man animated show, which is going to be in the Raimi-verse and is going to kind of continue that with as an animated show. Obviously there's a big push. People want to see an Amazing Spider-Man 3, even though everyone hates the last two, but everyone wants to see a Amazing Spider-Man 3. And honestly, I think Andrew Garfield deserves it, quite frankly. So, like, I think there's a lot of opportunity for Spider-Man projects, I think. And I think, and even just the whole idea of everyone not knowing Peter Parker is Spider-Man anymore, and everyone forgetting who Peter Parker is. I think, to me, that's a really good idea, because it's addressing my problem with these movies, and and I think Sony is distancing themselves from the MCU by doing this. I think it's a very purposeful move too, because remember a couple of years ago when we almost lost Spider-Man in the MCU?
Yep.
I think, because the original deal was for a set amount of films. It wasn't for a permanent thing. That's why we have the Venom movies, which were sometimes in the MCU until Spider-Man No Way Home decided to go, nah, they're not in the MCU. But, like, I think it's allowing Sony to go off and make their own Spider-Man movies that are still in the MCU, but we're kind of distancing him away. So I don't expect we'll see Peter Parker or Spider-Man in any more crossover stuff. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's just going to be... We know there's another trilogy of films coming, so I think it's just going to be a trilogy of very Spider-Man focused stories without those other elements, and I'm excited for that. Personally.
I am in full agreement with you.
That's what I want. That's what I want in life. I just want Spider-Man movies that are about Spider-Man and not about fucking Iron Man turning up for half of it. And while I do enjoy Homecoming, it's not a movie I'm going to watch again. If that tells you anything. I say that though, but watching this movie has actually made me want to rewatch all the Spider-Man movies. So I think I'm actually, when No Way Home comes out on digital, I think I'm actually going to do that. I think I'm going to sit down and watch the Raimi trilogy. I'm going to watch the Amazing Spider-Man films. And then I'm actually going to watch Homecoming and Far From Home, and then finish it all off with No Way Home. I think that's going to be a great way to kind of watch it, I think. That's exciting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might do that. And then I'll watch Into the Spider-Verse as well, because we've also got new Spider-Verse movies coming soon. Part 1, I don't even know what it's called.
Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh, okay. I knew it was something Spider-Verse, I just couldn't remember. I'm excited for that. I want to watch that. That's exciting. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about it. We talked about that way longer than I was planning to, but that's fine. I don't mind a good Spider-Man No Way Home discussion. But I think we should move on, unless there's anything else you want to add.
No, I think we should. I think we should hit the main point of the...
to what we're actually here to talk about this episode, and that is The Witcher. You finally watched it.
Yep.
After 2 years. I finally got you to sit down.
You didn't
and
get
watch
me to
The
do
Witcher.
anything.
Hang on. I have been pushing you to watch this for 2 years now.
Yes, but it's bold of you to assume I watched it because you told me to.
You 100% watched it because I told you.
I was always going to watch it.
because I kept telling you.
No.
I'm making fun. I'm playing around. Gee, stop taking it so seriously.
You're not my mum.
Oh, I'm just having a little play around. Just relax. Either way,
I will not relax. I'm being told my life is predetermined.
it's all part of the plan.
It's all part of the grand scheme.
Yeah. But you finally watched season 1, and you picked a good time to do it, of course, because season 2 was coming out.
Indeed.
And I'm assuming you watched the anime as well?
No, actually.
Okay, well, I did, so I'm going to tell you what I think of that. But before we get into The Witcher season 2, because that's what I want to talk about, what were your general thoughts on season 1? Just general. We're not going in depth here, just general. What do you think of season 1? Because you said you've read that first book, right?
No, I've not read the first book.
You've read some of it, right?
Yes.
The short stories, which is what season 1 is mostly based on. So, how did you feel about it?
I found it a fun little adaptation. I think the production value was both very good and also kind of not there sometimes, but that's okay. It's a first series. You kind of just put that to the side. I think my issue... Okay, so... It's much like Encanto. I think it's good. I just don't love it nearly as much as anyone else. I love Henry Cavill as Geralt.
Perfect. Remember when everyone was hating on that?
I was
saying... oh, yeah, when he was announced.
I didn't know people hated on that. Interesting.
Oh, yeah, everyone was like, this is a bad casting. You know how people are like, this is a bad casting. This isn't who I want Mads Mikkelsen. Which, by the way, to be fair, would be also a good choice. But he's too old to play the version of Geralt from the books. Henry Cavill, this is the perfect role for him. It takes full advantages of his abilities as an actor. And not only that, but I remember also the first screen test that came out. It looked horrible. And I'm going to be honest with you, the wig did look pretty bad at some points in season 1. In other points, it looked better.
Yes, I agree.
But in season 2, everything looks better. Like, even his contact lenses look better in season 2.
Season 1, the eyes were so disconcerting.
Yeah. Both his and Ciri's. It's so noticeable. But I allowed it not to take me out of the thing. I think the biggest issue a lot of people have with season 1, though, is the way they've chosen to tell the story, by having the whole non-linear aspect of it.
It was very distracting.
It is very distracting, especially because, they had to keep putting lines of dialogue in there to
explain where in relation to Sintra you are, and you're like...
And not only that, but also where Geralt and Yennefer are, because Yennefer's timeline starts long before Geralt's timeline starts, but then they catch up to each other. But then there's vast amounts of time between each episode that they're in together. So, like, you literally have an episode where they meet each other, and then the next episode is the dragon episode, I'm pretty sure. The, like, one where they have to hunt the dragon. So they have to have a line of dialogue of how long it's been. And then they have this little montage of all the times they've met each other in between the 2 episodes. So it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
But I think it works.
I don't fully agree. I don't know. I think it could have been done. I don't know how it could have been done better. I just think there had to have been a way. Because
I mean, it's
because obviously I watched this very late and I watched it a bit rushed. But when you're kind of just rushing through it, when it's already jumping about, it gets very hard to follow.
Especially when you've got characters that die in the first episode and then turn up for like every other episode.
Mouseman.
Fucking Mouse Sack is in like half of the series.
Yeah, he was the one that kept confusing me because he kept popping up, and I'm like, I know this is non-linear, but where the fuck are we? And then there's the imposter man who becomes Mouse Sack, and I'm like, oh, fuck's sake, now I gotta look out.
But that's in the modern day. And then, it is obviously a bit confusing, but I think, like, when you think about it at the end, you're like, okay, it kind of makes sense by that point. That's why I explained to you that the timelines are out of sync beforehand, because most people didn't know that. They were just watching the show as it was airing.
Yeah, I think the issue is
as it was airing, it was all dropped at once. So there was a lot of confusion at the time.
I think it's still confusing even with the clear up.
It's definitely confusing on the exact points everything's taking place, because there is a lot of changes from the books and things as well.
Here's the way I was watching season 2, and the best way I could think about it was, this is like Doctor Who season 11 to Doctor Who season 12. Season 11 is like a weird jump-in point every episode.
Yeah, like... Yeah, I can see that comparison, yeah.
Like, not necessarily in quality matchup, just in...
It's also not an accurate comparison in regards to narrative, but I get what you're saying.
It's just the vibes it gave me was... it felt like each episode was its own thing, with, like, bare mentions to the last episode, maybe, potentially.
And I think that also comes from the fact that season 1 is very heavily adapting short stories.
Yes, and I understand why that's difficult.
Where I think once we get to the actual series of books, I think it's going to be very different as well. Like, each episode isn't going to feel like a new story. Like, it's going to be a very, I think, linear thing. But we've got a long way to go before we get to there, because season 2 doesn't really adapt to the books at all.
So season 2 does a bit of Blood of Elves and Swords of Destiny, doesn't it?
In the sense that Geralt and Ciri go to places.
Yes, from what I've heard.
Outside of that, there's not really anything that happens in the books. I watched a breakdown video, and then I haven't, by the way, read the books, by the way. I've only just started reading the first one. But I have watched a breakdown video of the guy who breaks down each episode and talks about what's in the books and what isn't. And honestly, 90% of The Witcher Season 2 is not in the books at all. The biggest example is the entire plot arc for the series. None of that's in the books. Yennefer losing her powers, that's not in the books.
Do you know what fucking sucks about that? Is okay, season 2, I got a bit confused over season 2 because it wasn't really my first focus on what I was doing. I can't watch The Witcher without doing something else. That's where it's at for me, where
See, I smashed through it.
But I can't concentrate only on
so
it.
Much. I mean, it's interesting, like, for me. Remember how it took me like 4 years to play The Witcher 3? Because it was just so big, and like I loved it, but I wasn't into it in the way that I like. That's why I feel like if I replayed the game now on stream, I would probably finish it within a reasonable time frame, even if I did a lot more stuff, because I'm just into it. Like, watching the first season of the show got me really into it, and now I'm like, I have to read the books. It got me to read a book. I haven't read a book since I was like 11, and even then that was probably Harry Potter. So, like, I haven't read a book in years, and The Witcher has gotten me to read a book. Not even Doctor Who Time Lord Victoria's got me to read a book. I know you read that, but
yeah, I've read the first one.
It wasn't enough for me to read it. I was like, I don't care. I'm not reading this. I'll just read about it. I read about things. I don't read things. And then now all of a sudden, here I am. Every day I'm sitting down for a few minutes and I'm reading it. Like, I mean, to be fair, I'm reading it at a snail's pace. I'm reading like a couple of pages a day, to be honest. So I'm not really reading a lot.
But you're reading. I'm
literally doing it like every day or every other day. I'm sitting down and reading some of The Witcher, and I am fucking loving it. Oh my god, I'm still haven't completely finished the first short story yet, but it's the first short story is called The Witcher, and it's the episode, I think it's episode 4 maybe of season 1. It might be episode 4 or maybe episode 3, but it's the one where Geralt goes to what's he going to do? The Striga episode. And he goes, and the king's like, oh yeah, you know, my daughter or whatever's been cursed or whatever.
Yeah.
and then he goes, and it's that episode where they're in the castle and he's fighting off the Striga, and then he gets in the thing. Like, that's the short story I'm reading. But I don't mind things being different, as long as it's good.
I think the only reason I'm disappointed that season 2 is 90% different and the main thing is different is because I had a lot of trouble keeping up with, like, I get the gist of it. It's just the end game. I was like, why is... Like, it got explained. I was like, okay. That's why this is all happening. But I was like, I'd like to follow the threads a bit better. Maybe when I read the book. But now I find out when I read the book.
Yeah, when you read the book, you're going to be reading something completely different. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to adapt next season necessarily, but obviously things are different. So the first episode is actually a short story from the first book. And when you look at people complaining about season 2 of The Witcher, you'll find a very common thing they all say is they like the first episode. And I agree. I actually really liked the first episode. I thought the first episode was really good.
As did I.
And it was a nice change of pace from season 1.
The first episode was Geralt and Ciri going to Kaer Morhen, getting sidetracked,
doing a side quest.
And meeting the Hedgehog Man. Right.
The Hedgehog Man, and then there's the girl who's like the weird monster thing.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I've got the right episode.
That's actually a short story, and from what I've gathered from what people have said, it's actually adapted pretty faithfully. There are, of course, changes. For example, in the books, Geralt and Ciri, Ciri's not there in the books. And another thing is, in the books, I believe Geralt and Hedgehog Man are meeting for the first time. They don't actually already know each other like they do in the show. But apparently the general plot of it and the general kind of, the scenes and everything is pretty faithfully adapted. Which is weird that that's in a season that adapts nothing from the books. But it's a great episode, and I really enjoyed that episode. And from what I've seen, a lot of people really love it. Outside of that, do you know what's an episode people hate? People hate in season 2.
Is it the finale?
No. It's episode 2, where they go to Kaer Morhen. It's the one where Eskel turns into a Leshen.
I liked that episode.
I really liked that episode too, but people, book readers, fucking hate it.
Fair enough.
Because it's a character assassination of Eskel. Because I'm pretty sure... I was very confused watching it, because when Eskel died at the end, when he turned into the Leshen and died, I was like, wait, isn't Eskel in The Witcher 3?
Yeah, I was just thinking
I was like,
that.
wait, what's going on here? But yeah, so he doesn't die, so they made the decision to kill Eskel. And look, I'm not attached to the books in that way, so I don't really care about that. But man, that was the episode that pissed people off. A lot of people are mad, not just for the fact that they killed Eskel off, but the fact that they absolutely butchered his character. Yeah, apparently it's a big thing. Obviously, you and I don't have that attachment
no, we do
to
not.
be pissed about it. I really liked the episode. I loved seeing Kaer Morhen. I loved... I loved seeing all these other Witcher characters and how Ciri is kind of interacting with them. I loved meeting this show's version of Lambert for the first time. And of course, Vesemir as well. I actually really love Vesemir.
Yes, I was worried about... Vesemir is one of the characters that I've got a distinct vision of from the game. Geralt, I can be like, yeah, you can. He's the main character. You have to change some things from a video game that's not the main source. Vesemir is my only knowledge of him, so I was like...
Vesemir is straight out of the video games, because it's very clear when you watch The Witcher show that even though it is basing itself off the books, there's a lot of things in it that are inspired by the games.
I think the Wild Hunt is one of those, isn't it?
The Wild Hunt, yes. I believe the Wild Hunt does not appear in the books as far as I'm aware.
Which has quite a lot of people pissed as well.
Because the Wild Hunt randomly turns up in the last episode, and you're just and there's a lot of mention of the Wild Hunt.
Which was the one reveal I was excited about.
There's so much mention of it. There's a lot of the random characters will just be like, oh, the Wild Hunt, and you're just like, what the fuck are you talking about? I really enjoyed all of this series. I enjoyed the plot point. I actually think getting rid of Yennefer's powers was an interesting move. And also because she's also now captured by Nilfgaard, and she's forced to kind of interact with what's her name?
Fringilla.
Fringilla, that's it. Yeah, Fringilla. And yeah, I don't know, it's just interesting seeing characters that I know interact from the games, seeing them kind of in this early stage of their relationship, and their relationship is quite antagonistic, but they're also captured by elves, so they're forced to work together in those first couple of episodes. Like, they're forced to interact with each other because they're both in the same situation. I thought the whole thing with the elves was very interesting. I don't think any of that's in the books, I'm pretty sure. Absolutely nothing with the elves is in the books at all.
I figured that'd be in Blood of Elves.
Nah, but Blood of Elves would be more about Ciri, because Ciri
I was
the
thinking
bloodline of elves.
I was thinking more like physical, like bleeding, not like in your veins blood. I can see where I've gone wrong here. I see where
I think that's what that's more about, because that's the book that introduces Ciri, so it makes sense to me that that's what that's about. And again, that's why season 1 is kind of a bit fucked, because season 1, if they didn't bring Ciri into it, we would have a whole season without Ciri if they were just adapting the books in a linear way. And that's why they did what they did in season 1, was so they could bring Ciri in. Because here's the thing, and this is what a lot of people debate about, because a lot of people are also mad at season 2 because Geralt kind of takes a back seat in season 2, because the show kind of becomes more about Ciri than it is about Geralt.
Which I'm perfectly fine with, personally.
I'm perfectly fine with, because because I haven't even read the books, but a lot of book readers are like, this criticism makes no sense, because Ciri is the main character. Like, yes, Geralt is the main character that we view the story through, but the series is about Ciri. It's not about Geralt. So it makes sense that the show would focus more on Ciri than it would Geralt, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can even tell that playing the game. Like, play The Witcher 3. The game's about Ciri. It's not about Geralt or anything else that's going on in the game. It's about Ciri. And so, like, Ciri is the protagonist of the Witcher series. She's one of the 3 main characters, but a lot of people don't seem to understand that a protagonist and a main character can be 2 completely different things. Like, a protagonist doesn't have to be the main character of the story.
Protagonist just has to be the hero of the story. Sort of.
Protagonist doesn't even... Yeah, like, protagonist doesn't even need to be the simple definition of a protagonist and antagonist is a protagonist is someone who goes through a change, and an antagonist is someone who forces that change. That's it. That's the definition of protagonist and antagonist. It's why, in a very black and white story, the protagonist is the hero, the antagonist is the villain. That's how it works. But that's why you can have stories where the protagonist is also the antagonist at the same time. Or you can have stories about a character like the Joker, who is a villain, but he is the protagonist of that story. And that doesn't mean that Geralt isn't a protagonist either, because you can have multiple protagonists in a story. But the point is, The Witcher is about Ciri. It's not about Geralt. And so, a lot of people are obviously mad that the show is focusing more on Ciri, but, like, that's what happens in the books. Like, a lot of even book readers are like, that's what happens in the books. What are you talking about? Like, Ciri is the main character. Like, it's just weird. But I will say, I don't think they really, like, to me, it doesn't seem like they focus more on Ciri. It seems like Ciri becomes a bigger focus than what she was in Series 1. But, like, I think the reason why people think she's a bigger focus than Geralt is because the story's caught up and they're now together. Where I think in Series 1, they were separated for the whole series. And so maybe that's why it seems to people why Geralt's taking a bit of a back seat. But, like, to me, watching it, it really didn't seem like Geralt was taking a back seat.
Honestly, like, if anyone takes the show, it's the exact same problem that happened with Season 1. Not necessarily a problem, that's the wrong word. Yennefer has a shit ton of screen time compared to both of those characters.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm fairly sure Yennefer has more screen time than Ciri in Season 2. Am I wrong in that?
I mean, fuck if I know, eh? I'll have to rewatch it again. I want to rewatch it again, but I don't know. But Ciri is the focal point of the plot of the series. And so is Yennefer, actually, because we've got that lady, the witch lady in the woods in the house that the witch is trapped there. The one who's just trying to get back to her world. Essentially, that's the plot line of what she's doing, essentially. Kind of. I mean, she also wants to just, reign and introduce a bunch of new monsters to the world that they're in, and that's why she takes over Ciri at the end, which I actually liked that plotline. I loved the whole thing. I loved that she escapes and then finds Ciri and possesses her. I really enjoyed that whole final episode. I don't know about you, but I
enjoyed the final episode quite a bit.
A lot of people complaining that Vesemir is very out of character in this series. I only have the games to reference, and to be honest, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
But I put a question mark at the end of that because obviously I haven't read enough of the books. I haven't even had any moment with Vesemir in the books at all. So I haven't read enough of the books to know, but based on how he is in the games, it kind of matches up for me. A lot of people complaining about the idea that he's very insistent on getting very insistent on getting Ciri's blood to further to create new witches, which obviously none of that happens in the books either. So a lot of people are saying he's very out of character for that, but we just don't have the reference points.
Yeah,
I guess that's the main point of this discussion is people are mad about things and we don't
can't
have the reference points.
Why.
So we're just like, oh yeah, we liked it. But yeah, you got kind of two plots. You got Ciri's kind of overarching plot, Ciri's training to be a witcher in this series. And I thought we had some really good scenes of that.
I very much like the training montage.
And I usually hate training montages, by the way. I just find them so cringe. But this was alright. I didn't mind this one. But I enjoy it, and I really liked a lot of Geralt and Ciri's interactions this series. Seeing that relationship, because, again, my reference point is The Witcher 3, and I know those characters to have a father-daughter relationship. So seeing that kind of relationship in the early stages and seeing it kind of develop and grow, I was really cool. I really enjoyed seeing that this series. There was a lot of great Ciri Geralt scenes this series. What didn't you like? I mean, I know you said you found a bit confused. Was there anything you didn't like? Was there any episodes that were that wasn't that good?
No, I didn't really find anything that I didn't like with the series. Even in season 1, no, there wasn't really anything I didn't like. It's a good show to me. That's not something I love, just something I'm like, yeah, I can see why people like this.
It's a bit of fun.
Yeah, it's a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Season 2 was much the same. I even liked just the slower, more politics-based episodes. I was like,
okay. Yeah, there was a lot of politics, a lot of, stuff going on. We haven't even talked about it, but, you've got Nilfgaard now has Sintra, and they've actually helped, technically the elves have taken back Sintra, but really, who has Sintra? It's Nilfgaard.
Yeah.
We hear a lot about Emir this series, until he finally shows up in the very final shot at the end. And that confused me so much. Because in the games, I'm not talking about Emir himself. I'm talking about the fact that in the games, I know Emir is Ciri's father. So when last season, Ciri's father was just this random, guy.
This random hedgehog man.
I was genuinely confused. I remember saying to my brother, because I'd only been halfway through watching Series 2 by this point, and we kept being told that Emir was coming. What's his name would say Emir is on his way, or we need to make sure that this is all sorted before Emir gets here. And I was like, okay, so Emir, we're gonna see Emir this season, and he's obviously I know who he is in the games. He's Ciri's father. And I remember saying to my brother when he was here one day, I was like, I'm so genuinely confused, because is this guy because I was explaining to him this random guy that is Ciri's father, but then in the games Amir's Ciri's father. So I was so confused. But obviously that gets cleared up at the end of the season when it turns out Amir is actually that random guy. I don't know how that happened. I don't know if that's in the books or not. I'm assuming it would be. But as soon as I saw it at the end, I was like, yeah, that makes sense now. That makes complete sense. Because we were told he was dead. We were told both Ciri's father and mother died in, like, a boat when, like, their ship sank or something. Right? So I'm just sitting here like, where the fuck does Amir factor into this story? You know? But there we go. Turns out, Amir was Ciri's father all along.
I think one character who made, like, little sense to me, because he didn't even have, like, he didn't even have, like, a proper payoff to the person he was talking to, who I think was Fringilla, was the elf in the sewer with the older elf, the mute one.
The one that was with Ciri last series?
No,
that the one you're talking about?
Not Dara. Dara.
I don't know what his name is.
Not him. The other one, the mute one in the sewers who got taken by the the sewer monster.
I don't remember this.
They're talking.
What episode is it in?
I think it's like the third episode, maybe third or fourth.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna do a rewatch of season 2 at some point soon.
I could be completely wrong because I wasn't fully paying attention, which is my downfall with this series. It's just.
So to be fair, you smashed through this series. Like, I remember saying to you, literally one night, you're like, I haven't watched it yet.
I've got 3 days. I can do
Thursday.
This.
Then literally the next day, you're like, I'm up to the final episode. And I was like, what the fuck? Did you just stay up all night and watch it? Like, what the fuck?
I did stay up pretty much all night and watch it.
I was like, Jesus Christ. Because I was fully expecting you not to watch it, to be honest. I was expecting you to start it, and then Thursday would come around and be like, we're just going to record Doctor Who because I haven't finished it yet. So when I got that message from you where you're like, I'm up to the final episode, I was shook. I was shook.
See, the kind of payoff for that is just I didn't fully pay attention, and I'm just not capable of that with this series. I have tried. I just can't. I like it. I think it's good. I just can't keep concentrating on it. I don't know what it is. I don't find it boring. I think it's quite exciting, but I just keep having moments where I'm like, I need to be doing something else right now.
Do you know what I did really like this series? Moving away from like plot and character, I really loved the visual effects. I loved the production value.
The production value was way better than season 1.
It's very clear this series they had a bigger budget.
Yeah,
it's very clear. And, like, even to the little things, like, I think Geralt's armor looks fantastic this series.
Agreed.
Geralt's wig
looks hair.
Fantastic this series. It actually looks real. I love... do you know what was interesting? Is last series... I don't think... It's kind of confusing to me, because last series, I don't think Ciri had a wig. I think it was her hair. But this series, it is very clearly a wig. But outside of that, like, the sets are better. The visual effects are better. Like, Geralt's using signs a lot more in this series than he did in the first series. And he's using all of his signs at his disposal this series.
Something I loved, and it keeps...
Instead of just using Ard like he did in the first series, he used Ard a couple of times, and that was it.
Is Ard the fire one, or...
No, Ard's the force push one.
The force push one. Something that I never got tired of seeing this was whenever they did the sign and then, like, brushed their fingers up their sword to light it on fire. That was always sick.
Was cool. That was cool. In Ciri, yeah, it's where he runs his fingers along the sword and the sword just glows this bright orange because it's so hot.
I loved it whenever that happened.
Did he use fire? Did he use Igni at all though? Outside of that,
I think he did. I think he did.
Did he?
I'm fairly sure there was at least one instance of it.
Maybe. Like, it just seemed like he was using everything at his disposal, where I found in season 1 he very rarely used signs at all.
I think they were
I know
afraid
he used Ard a couple of times. Like in the first episode, he pushed along and he did it a couple of times. But this series, he's using his shields. He's got Ard. He's using properly. Like there's a lot going on. In
I think
series,
there's
and I really
a large
appreciated that.
marketing thing to that, in the sense that science and magic and things are still very much high fantasy, and as much as high fantasy is very in the know now, it's still something that you don't want to push too hard for audiences. So I think maybe for season 1 they kept it at like stock standard. Yeah, there's elves, there's some proper weird magic with witches and things.
Yeah.
And then we'll keep it there. And then when season 2 comes around, they're like, yeah, let's showcase what everyone can do.
Yeah.
Like, series.
Because, like, it's not just witches that have magic. Obviously, Ciri's neither a witcher or a witch, and she obviously has magic powers. A lot more magic powers than we probably are aware of. Like, because obviously in the game, she can teleport around.
Which she does do once in the series, which I did like that scene.
Where in season 1 she's got this like really loud scream that breaks. Also, I love how those monoliths are like, I don't know how they described it, but those monoliths were like relics from the conjunction of the spheres, which I just find the whole concept of the conjunction of the spheres really interesting.
Same.
And like there's all these realms that existed separately, and then they all converged, and that's how monsters.
Yeah, it's really cool to think about
world.
The Witch universe was your stock standard, like ye old
medieval
England,
ye oldie times.
And then one day,
year he.
Then one day, in this invisible fucking plane of existence, burst onto ours, and then and monsters.
Now you have monsters, and I'm pretty sure the elves came from a different sphere.
Yeah,
I don't think
so.
Elves were in.
I think the base land was pretty much just humans, and the way
humans and just classic medieval type stuff.
Yeah, and then elves and dwarves. Dwarves don't really get talked about a lot, and I keep forgetting they exist in The Witcher.
They do.
And then,
but we have all these monsters, and obviously now without the conjunction of the spheres, there wouldn't be a need for witches to exist. So now we have witches exist in the world, but like with everything, witches barely exist anymore. I love that. Although that was another complaint, by the way, is in series 2 when they go to Kaer Morhen, there's way more witches than what there are actually in the books. In the books, I think the guy was saying there's like 4 witches.
Yeah, there's like Vesemir,
Eskel, Lambert, and Geralt.
Yeah.
Where in the show they go to Kaer Morhen and there's at
least
just
5 to
room
10,
full of witches. Yeah, there's a lot of them. But the anime actually shows those events and how the fall of Kaer Morhen led to their not being able to create witches anymore. That's what the anime shows.
Okay.
It's the only part of that anime that I liked, because the rest of it I thought was boring.
Fair enough. Okay.
I was like, I'm not invested in Vesemir as a character enough to give a shit about an origin story for him. But I was like, I really hope this film shows the Battle of Kaer Morhen and how all of that took place. And it did. It got there eventually, but it did show it, and I thought that was really cool. I enjoyed the last half hour of the anime. I didn't like the rest of it.
Fair enough.
I was so fucking bored. I was like, I don't care about this at all. Vesemir is a completely different character when he's young, but that's to be expected. He's like the Vesemir I know from the games. He's like the old wise, witcher who's lived through a lot and seen a lot, and it makes sense that his younger version would be, not like that.
Yeah.
But you could almost make him a completely different character. Like he didn't have to be Vesemir.
It was just the name recognition.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that film is an original story. It's not based off any books. It's based off lore, but it's not based off any books. But yeah, back to season 2. I really enjoyed season 2. I think the whole plot line with all these new monsters coming into the world that were, I guess, there before, but they weren't released into the world until that big monolith fell and tore a big... I'm a little confused by that, but it fell and it sunk into the earth, and then I guess
split the land.
Yeah, it sunk into the earth quite a bit, and I guess these might have been creatures that either lived under the earth, or maybe the monolith breaking opened a portal to another world, and that's why we're getting all these. Yeah,
that's
what
I'm figuring it is, the second one, or like maybe they were on, like, because obviously different planes of existence exist. Maybe
they still exist. Yeah,
maybe
like,
they
even
were
though there's
on...
a conjunction of the spheres, they still exist. But of course, by the end, it turns out that really all this person wanted, this witch lady wanted, was to go back home.
Yeah, she didn't have to be such a bitch about it.
Yeah. I mean, she did want to get revenge on the witches, because remember, the reason she was trapped in the first place was the witches were the reason that they locked her away in that house in the forest, which immediately, as soon as I saw that house, it reminded me of the boss fight in Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Me too.
That's the first thing I thought of. I was like, oh my god, we're doing this boss fight, okay. And then it turned out to just be like a prison. And one thing that's different in the show that also isn't in the books is we actually have the bond between Yennefer and Ciri forming this series. Even though Yennefer tries to steal Ciri to get her powers back or whatever, you see that bond start to form, which from my knowledge doesn't happen in the books at this point.
Yeah.
It may happen later, but not at this point. Because again, I know what I know from the games. I know that Yennefer is like a mother figure to Ciri. Isn't it weird, though, that because they aged up Ciri for this show, literally in a couple of seasons, Ciri is going to be the same age as she is in The Witcher 3?
Yes.
That's really weird. Because there's a lot of people that don't even want a Witcher 4. And I would sit in that camp as well, but I also like Ciri a lot, so I would be perfectly fine with a Ciri game.
Likewise.
But I like the idea of small scale games. I think they should go back to The Witcher 2. You know, The Witcher 2, 20, 30-hour game, because I mean, isn't Blood and Wine alone longer than The Witcher 2?
From what I've heard, yes.
Like, I think that's what they should do. Let's just scale it down, tell some nice smaller games, and just focus on making good small single player games that aren't these big open worlds. Because remember, The Witcher 3 also did have a bit of a rocky launch as well. Wasn't anywhere near as bad as Cyberpunk, but that game was buggy as fuck. I mean, I've seen footage of release Witcher 3, and it's pretty buggy. And it's still pretty buggy, to be honest with you. But yeah, I know, I'm interested. Anyway, also, I'm interested in Season 3 of the show, since that's what we're actually talking about.
Hi there, yes. Netflix Witcher. Season 3, gonna love it. Sure.
Do you know what is actually interesting? Is there's... I'm interested to see what Netflix content is going to come to the Witcher 3 Next Gen patch. Because we know they're also, with the Next Gen Witcher 3 patch, they're also bringing Netflix content to the game. So I'm not expecting much. I'm probably expecting, I think at most, it'll be some DLC armor that's based off the show.
I reckon there might be a quest line or something. Because
maybe they might bring a little something or other.
They did a small quest line stuff for like the free DLC that they did. So I'm sure.
So maybe we might see something. Maybe.
Throwaway line
and this is, I think,
Siri.
wishful thinking. But who knows? Maybe we might even see some new skins for the characters. Because you can already mod all of the characters to look like their Netflix counterparts. And it's very weird. I'm going to be honest with you. It's weird seeing Henry Cavill in The Witcher 3. But you can do that. So I wonder if maybe they might go down that route as well. And you could actually change your character to a DLC skin, which is based off the Netflix version. So you could play either as Geralt or you can play as Henry Cavill.
That'd be fun but weird.
I think it's wishful thinking, but I reckon most it's probably going to be is I reckon it'll probably just be some DLC armor, maybe some DLC outfits for Ciri and Yennefer or something. But I doubt it's probably going to be much more than that. But it'd be interesting to see. But yeah, I'm going to end this Witcher conversation here, I think.
I think we had a good long talk on that.
I really enjoyed that conversation about The Witcher because The Witcher has become one of my favorite IPs. I'm so excited to read more of it. I'm so excited to watch more of it. I really don't care about the spin-off show that's coming out, but if I hear it's good, I will watch it. But that brings us to the end of the episode. I'm looking forward to the next season of The Witcher where we can talk about it again. Because I love this show. And I'm going to keep you up to date on where I'm at in my book read-through, I think. That'll be something I might do regularly. And you know how you do your regular Doctor Who update?
Indeed, we're up to season 9, episode 3.
Yep, I am going to do that for The Witcher. We'll see how we go. Someone said to me yesterday, they were like, why are you reading it on your phone? Why don't you just buy the book? And I'm like, I am not spending money on a book that I may potentially not finish.
Fair enough.
Because I might be into it now, but what if I get bored of reading?
Also fair enough.
I may not bother finishing it. So and a mate of mine suggested I listen to the audiobooks. So that's going to be my backup plan, is if I don't want to read it. Because I prefer, the problem is with audio is I need to be fully concentrating on it, otherwise I can't. Like, this is the reason why I don't listen to really any more Big Finish. You know, I listened to a couple of David Tennant ones, but I found if I wasn't just sitting there 100% focused on it, I wasn't really paying attention that well. So if I listen to the audiobooks, I'm going to have to sit there and listen to it, because I need to be immersed in it. That's why I'm choosing to read the books instead. I'm choosing to break my decade-long streak of not reading a single thing. I'm choosing to read the book so I can immerse myself in it. So we'll see what happens, but I'm going to keep the audiobooks as backup. And I'm looking forward to playing the Witcher games at some point this year, because in 2020 it was Resident Evil. Last year it was Final Fantasy VII, and probably would have been more Final Fantasy games if it didn't take me all year to play it. And this year I'm thinking it'll be the Witcher games, the first 2. I might play those at some point.
Yeah.
And knowing that they're short as well is so great. It's so good for me. I'm like, yes, they're short. I can play them and finish them. It's like you said earlier. All you have to say to me is the game's short. I'm in. I'm in. I'm there. Let's go. Your final thoughts? Are you excited for a Witcher season 3?
I am. Like, obviously not as much as everyone else, but I look forward to seeing where it goes. I think maybe being caught up, maybe I'll invest myself a bit more in season 3 than I did the first 2 seasons. But I am looking forward to it.
Yes. Yes, you were forced at gunpoint to watch the first 2 seasons. I'm going back to that again. But that brings us full circle, doesn't it? To the end of the episode. Thank you everyone so much for listening. I don't know what our next episode is going to be, because I wanted to do a Last Night in Soho episode, but honestly I don't think that's going to happen until at some point, I guess, in the Edgar Wright episodes we do, just because you still haven't watched it, and I would like to watch it again before doing it. So we'll definitely do an episode on it. I just don't know whether it'll be the next one or not. So we'll see what happens. But I'm not sure when this episode's releasing, but either we have a new episode of our Doctor Who podcast out, Doctors in Distress, on the New Year's special. Either that is already out, or it's not yet, in which case I will cut that part out. Or I won't do that and just leave it in and see what happens.
Hey, I can't find this.
But yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure out what the next episode's about. But until then, very exciting news. We are back on podcast platforms. So not at the time of recording this, but it will be the thing. So if you're listening to this on podcast platforms and you've missed our last few episodes, we actually have a few episodes there for you to go back and listen to, including our last episode where we gave out our bullshit awards for the year of 2021. So go and check that out. Previously only available on YouTube, but we have a Suicide Squad episode, we have a Baby Driver episode, and we have a whatever episode. No Time to Die. That's it. We did No Time to Die, finally, after a year. So go check those out. They're on podcast platforms now if you don't want to watch the YouTube versions or you haven't seen the YouTube versions yet. And of course, we also have our Doctor Who spoiler cast where we talked about Doctor Who Flux, and we've got an episode either out or coming out about Eve of the Daleks. So make sure you go and check that out. We've got plans for that show, and hopefully now that that's also on podcast platforms, it can kind of branch off a little bit, I'm hoping. But this has been fun, Lewin. First podcast of 2022,
Woohoo.
Probably. Or the second one.
Depending on which gets published first.
Which order these come out in, yeah. But this is fun. This has been fun talking about The Witcher. One of my favorite things to talk about, and I am looking forward to getting to know the Witcher universe more.
Likewise.
As I play the games, and I read the books, and I rewatch the Witcher show, and I do all of the things, and I watch another million interviews of Henry Cavill talking about the Witcher. Looking forward to it. But until the next episode where we cover something, Lewin, take us out.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I was going to say watching. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
And watching.
Yeah, true. If you're staring at our nicely detailed little background. Thanks for watching. We will catch...
Do you know, for the last few episodes... I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but do you know the last few episodes I've been putting the effort in to change the picture for everything we talk about?
Huh.
I've decided after 2 episodes of doing that, I'm not doing that anymore. So we're just going to go back to having the thumbnail just in the background with our little overlay, and that's it. I'm not doing that anymore.
I hope everyone enjoys
I was only doing it while the videos were specifically on YouTube and not anywhere else. I thought I'd put a bit of extra effort in to make them worth it, but honestly, it's not worth it for me. So unless I hire someone else, but I don't have the money for that. Anyway, continue on what you were doing. Sorry to interrupt.
Thanks everybody for watching and listening. We will catch you. If you watch our Doctors in Distress, we will catch you on the other episode, unless that came first. Or we will catch you next month with the next Turning Point podcast. With stuff.
We'll talk about something. Let's talk about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Good game.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
We'll see you then when we pull a ollie.
Probably. A kickflip. I know things about skating.
Adios, everyone.